their humble beginnings as cost efficient back offices to their status as thriving innovation hubs, global capability centers, GCCs, are undergoing a tremendous evolution. Being AI driven, innovation led, and strategy focused, GCCs are redefining the future of global enterprises. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Analytics Inside, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Dialani. Now, over the last decade, we have watched India's GCCs outgrow that cost arbitrage tag. The next decade will belong to GCCs that become innovation and product powerhouses using AI tool chains, not just to optimize, but to create. Now, for us, I think this shift is not about adding more engineers, it is about re architecting the roadmap, talent model, and governance for an era where IP creation is the core value proposition. Let's welcome Srikara Rao, CTO at R Systems International, to talk more on it. Hi, Srikara, how are you doing?
Hey, hi Priya. Nice to be on this call, and I'm doing good. Thank you.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast, Shrikar. And of course, when we're talking about global capability centers, there's a lot, to explore and understand the current scenario, and how, of course, where are we leading in terms of the future, I would say, or in the coming, 3, 4 years. Of course, we are going to talk a lot on GCCs and its impact on the overall business landscape and the society. But before that, we would like to know more about our Systems International. So, can you help us understand about the company, its specialization, and anything that would, surprise our listeners?
That's a tough job, but I'll try and do my best. So, our systems has been a pioneer in the product engineering space. And 75% of our business comes from product engineering, where we build our platforms, where we build specific required, customized, outcome-based activities for our customers. And the remaining 20-25% of the business comes from IT services that includes cloud, that includes data, digital, and cybersecurity as well. So, from a landscape perspective, 70% of the business comes for us from the Americas, 15% comes out of Eastern Europe, and 15% comes out of the Asia Pacific region. We are publicly listed in India. We are a $208 million organization at this point in time, without counting the recent acquisition that we did that added an additional $25-30 million into the kitty. From a pure vertical perspective, we are more strong on the ISV side, a lot to do with tech and internet, telecom, as well as into banking financial services. While the other segments of retail, manufacturing have all been put together and made into one single vertical. So, from a horizontal perspective, the major focus is on cloud, data, and quality engineering. So, we are around 5,000 plus people organization, and absolutely in every nook and corner of the globe. It looks like to be a billion-dollar organization, but at this point, we are $208 million.
Thank you for sharing that impressive overview, Shrikara. And it's really great to understand how the company is driving innovation in the cloud data and quality engineering space and delivering unique value to its clientele. Of course, that gives a very strong foundation to understand the impact of your work for our listeners. Moving ahead, we would also like to know more about you, Shrikara. You have extensive experience in industries like BFSI, manufacturing, healthcare, and you possess deep technical expertise in cloud services, IT security, and service management. And you have also, spearheaded strategic initiatives in FinOps, migration, hyperscaler alignment. So, that's really fantastic, and that gives a really holistic overview of your skills and talent. But we would like to know more about you. I mean, how has your journey been till date? And, what is your role and contribution towards the company currently?
Wonderful. So I think we all came from an era which was driven by what do you call kind of innovation all the time. That is how I came in. So every step of my life has been where I've been a partner to CIOs, CTOs, IT directors, worked with them to see what the next leap of faith looks like and actually help them to get onto that. So in that context, I feel very blessed that I'm today in a world where AI innovation is making the world turn upside down. Look at a different element of how the data that we have all collected over the past 10, 15, 20 years and lying with us probably in archives, lying with us probably in some kind of a location is all coming to use with AI propelling the leverage of all the data and we being able to make human lives much better. So this is becoming a use case kind of thing. It could be for an immigration queue in the airport. It could be in a retail store to see where the footfall is. It could be an imaginary use case that you can think of. It could link into the quality in manufacturing segments, into ensuring that less number of devices are defective and things like that. So I think the way at least I see myself as evolving is I see that the ability to leverage the amounts of data that have been lying around, develop multiple use cases because of that, and produce outcomes that actually help people to be more efficient, operations to be most cost effective, and go to markets being faster. I think that's the innovation where at this point in time the journey I am. And if I look at my trajectory, first 40% of my life, I was a customer myself. And the remaining 60%, which is in the last 35 years, I have actually been on this innovation space. I cannot tell you how much motivated right now I am. I just came back from a Blackstone conference because we are a Blackstone portfolio company. And I can tell you that as part of this, what I learned was this innovation journey is just making me a sugar baby. So it's adding so much of things to think, work upon, bring into foreplay, and then say, okay, now we have a back-end system of AI, we have a front-end system of AI, and we have customer outcomes to be derived. Putting all these things together and ensuring that we leverage the good things that have come out because of NVIDIA, because of OpenAI, because of Anthropy, they giving us the products that we can leverage. Technology enabling business is the situation that I'm in, and it's a lovely place to be in. Thank you.
That's an impressive journey and definitely a fascinating journey too. And it really shows how your contributions align with the company's broader goals. Now, speaking of, how do we see the future in terms of the growth of GCCs? Of course, when we talk about the growth of GCCs, it reflects significant changes in the global business landscape driven by technological advancements, economic shifts, and the increasing need for operational efficiency. As organizations tap into global expertise, GCCs in India are adapting expertly to these evolving demands, becoming power centers for their parent organization. So, how do you think currently the global GCCs landscape is, how it is evolving, and what is the role of our systems here?
Yeah, I think the way GCC evolved was where people thought they needed more control, they needed their own people to be sitting there. They were looking at somebody to probably help them build it, incubate it, and then give it back to them. And that was the whole thought process to say, I will control everything, sort of. It started with control. Then it went on to be saying, am I also being able to ensure that I make more margins or less cost actually? So it becomes a FinOps kind of thing to say it's a cost related thought process. And thereby people said, okay, if there is a service provider who's making margins out of me, can I do it for lesser? And that's the second thought process on cost. But I think over a period of time, these are all cycles like a sine wave, it comes up and down. But what stood out was that there was no alternative innovation. And that's why when people now talk of GCC and the GCC 3.0 and they talk of innovation, I think that's where we are at the right point in place. Because I think the new GCCs will all be innovation hubs. And these innovation hubs is going to cater to, say, terminal operations. It's going to take care of pharmacy related stuff. It's going to take care of hospitalization and the way you are able to allocate beds and things like that. It will go into BFSI to look at things. It will go into cybersecurity and be innovative in terms of saying, how do you protect against all the new threats that we are looking at? So, in my view, a lot of GCCs now will focus on innovation to enable their parent organizations to work efficiently, risk free. Low cost is naturally something that will come, but it will also advance and accelerate the ability to provide business outcomes leveraging the latest technologies. And that is where GCCs will be headed towards. So, there will be a lot of innovation labs set up. There will be a lot of products that will be interfaced. It will be off the shelf, it will be from open source elements, and you will have to marry all these things together. For example, somebody could have a speech to text, but then they won't have a text to speech in the same realm of things. You'll have to borrow it from somebody else. So it will become an eco space of innovation coming from different places, tailored together through the innovative engineers that we have. And that's what the GCC 3.0 will look like.
Definitely. And I mean, when we talk about GCCs, I think they have moved from, just becoming cost-effective delivery hubs to becoming strategic innovation centers. And I'm really glad to see how our systems is enabling that shift with an engineering first mindset. You also spoke about, the GCC 3.0. I think it's about AI native innovation hubs that are driving value led transformation. So, of course, we're talking about distributed product teams that operate across geographies but innovate as one, where AI, automation, and data engineering are not just enablers but the very fabric of how products are designed, built, and even scaled. How do you think, or how can you, measure probably the impact of this GCC 3.0 changing the entire landscape and, of course, the entire landscape in the coming years, if you want to consider the next 5 years?
Right. So, in my sense, right, the rotational GCC, what I call, this is what I call as the rotational GCC, will be very, very effective. So, in the past, what used to happen is there used to be somebody running something up here in the US, in Australia, giving requirements back to India, back to Philippines, back to somewhere else in Egypt, and get things done which are task oriented things. So this is where an engineer would come every day. He knows what his deliverables look like. He goes and delivers. But now with the GCC concept coming, I believe we are going back to those great words that were spelled. The world is flat. It has become flat. So in that context, you need to have the entire set of understanding about how the business operates, how the applications enable those business operations, how those applications are enabled by AI and robots and things like that. And then eventually, if at all there are changes, how do you handle those changes? That's how you need to have the entire 360-degree view of anything and everything that happens from a business outcome point of view. And it could be in any domain. It could be in retail, it could be in housing, it could be in pharma, it could be in healthcare, it could be anywhere. Now, because of that, what's happening, like when our systems is looking at developing something, say for a product for a customer, and then we are bringing in intelligence into that. We also extend a lot into understanding the business of the customer, the business of what exactly goes on, and how that change matrix over the next 5 years is being planned, so that we know if, for example, the number of ships grow or the number of goods that are shipped across go, what happens in, say, how the baggage claim is going to change everything in the future. All these things will come into picture where the end engineer will understand and get a good review of this, and thereby he's probably going to rotate, get all this information, go back, leverage his intelligence, leverage the products, apply it over there, and then the new products that come out are more consistent with an end-to-end approach rather than having piecemeal kind of thing. And then you have an integrator who's going to integrate all that. There's going to be no integrator. The integrators are all, each one of them will be an integrator. The robots themselves will start integrating at some point in time, and then there will be a quality check done by another robot. And eventually when the GCC output comes, it's, or the, I would say it's more than the GCC outcome, it is a product outcome that comes. It will look like as one monolithic structure, and inside that it has got a ton of micro elements that make it talk to each other, collaborate with each other, and then be able to generate monolithic structure for the end business to absorb. This is how it's all going to evolve in the next 3 to 5 years.
Definitely, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and that was definitely a great perspective. With the emergence of the GCC 3.0, I think, I think this approach today couldn't be more relevant, is what I feel, and it's redefining how enterprises think about innovation and scale, and how they are becoming true strategic partners driving value and further transformation. Moving ahead, I was just reading this survey, and it stated that GCCs have experienced an average attrition rate of 12.5%, with nearly 60% reporting attrition rates falling between 5% and 15%. Interestingly, about three-fourths of those surveys respondents also expressed concerns that increased attrition driven by the competitive talent landscape continues to pose high to medium risk for their business. Now, over the past 12 months, like, or the last year, I think the synergy between the GCC sector and startups has led to the creation of new products. Additionally, GCCs are also offering a range of learning opportunities to their workforce with the goal of upskilling and cross skilling, which is thereby strengthening their operational capabilities. So, my next question is, how do you think is AI and the future of work? I mean, why it's about augmentation and not replacement, and how enterprises are rescaling to stay future ready.
Excellent question. And I think the last 3 days probably will help me answer this question better. I was in the Blackstone Portfolio Technology Conference, and we had almost, I think it was 80 plus portfolio companies out there, which included CIOs, CTOs, CISOs. And the biggest thing that I saw was in terms of the reskilling part. So most of the managers who used to be managers are no longer managers. They also are learning how vibe coding works, for example. Secondly, when there are people leaving, they are not replacing the people and they are absolutely augmenting it with digital bots. And they're already getting prepared for that. So that's a big change that I'm saying that rather than replacement, they are looking at augmentation with digital bots. The next thing I saw was in terms of new requirements coming in. The new requirements are essentially not something that they're planning to feed with manual manpower is human manpower. They're again going in for digital bots and the changes are happening. But where I saw a green light coming rather than a red light is where there are new things like regulations coming. And some of these regulations are like a battery passport, for example. Now, there is an element of a battery that requires a passport. These are all new regulations and new things that are coming up. Capacity that will require a lot of capacity because you're talking of, say, a million suppliers. You're talking of probably 1,000 components going into a particular product, and then each of these have to be validated, tested, tried, so that you're not using human labor somewhere, child labor somewhere. You're not bringing in from countries which are where you are already put a block on those countries to bring because of things that they're doing wrong. In this capacity fulfillment, I see a lot of people who are young, talented, who need to be brought in to ensure that they're able to take up all the new technologies, weave it through that, create a fabric, and then use that fabric as the layer. And below that, they use the digital agents. So the green part of it is I see a requirement of new thought processes, a new style of thinking, new ability to code, new ability to integrate, call for APIs, make it more resilient and things like that. And that's a big significant component for the new things. And then a massive army of digital components to run through this because you're not going to be able to create those massive manpower kind of things. So this is where I'm seeing new things coming up will change the requirement of the profile of the people, which are human resources, and then the profile of the digital bots underneath that. Replacements will go away for augmentation. Managers don't remain managers, they also become people who could actually hang on to technology to drive their business outcomes. And this is the change that is actually happening as we speak. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I really like, I think that lately it's really important how organizations are emphasizing on the idea of augmentation over automation. And definitely, it's a refreshing reminder that AI isn't here to replace human intelligence, but to amplify it. And it is really important how enterprises are recognizing the value of continuous learning and adaptability. I think these are some important traits that are becoming very critical, just as equal to as technical skills in the era of the new workforce that we are entering.
Very well said, Priya. Very well said.
Yeah, and I think in today's global enterprise landscape, the evolution of GCCs has become one of the most defining shifts in the technology and innovation ecosystem. What started out as offshore support hubs has now transformed into more strategic value engines because it's powering AI innovation, engineering excellence, and even global product development for some of the world's largest enterprises. Can you share some real world success stories, around the impact of the GCCs across BFSI, telecom, or healthcare sector?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start with telecom, where we pioneered something which is very interesting. So one of the things was we looked at various telecom organizations across Canada, across US, across Middle East, across Europe. Then we looked at the kind of thought process that they were driving with the adoption of cloud and cloud services. For example, today, if you look at Amazon and AWS has got some 250 services, and I'm just taking some names to give the comparative numbers as well, 250 plus services. And each service has a niche in the way it has been developed. It could be for identity, it could be for coding, it could be for something related to a business outcome. It could just be to ensure that the amount of compute you use is reduced. Many things like that, right? There are 250 services. So we have picked a bunch of services on which we operate. One of the example I want to give today is a real life example, is building of a C2C connector, which is a cloud to cloud connector. And in a cloud to cloud connector, we do have one cloud, which is the public cloud on one side. And on the other side, we have tons of OEM clouds. And these are hundreds of them, not ones or two. It could be a Philips bulb thing, it could be a Wise camera, it could be an Sonos speaker, it could be any cloud. And when we take all these clouds and then we start to integrate with the public cloud, today, when somebody wants to operate in their houses, they operate all these individual applications. While then we would want somebody to have a single dashboard to monitor, manage, operate, as well as give user experiences into that. Now we're taking this whole concept from across the globe and actually building those connectors, user experiences, all that in our GCC Innovation House. And in this GCC Innovation House is where things start to amplify. And it starts as a basic connector, gets tagged on to a single service on the public cloud, then leverages other services to bring in identity and things like that. Then enable it to be on a marketplace, and from a marketplace to be downloaded by a telecom player, and then used across millions of homes, where you can't expect every human to know how to operate every application, how to integrate every device, how to get that user experiences. Now, this is all done as a single integrated experience from our GCC house. And when these experiences are then translated eventually to the end consumer who is sitting somewhere in some remote place, has his garage automated, has his house automated, and things like that, that's where we see the real experience of the GCC piling up all the different experiences from different place, creating an outcome, and thereby, for example, supporting healthcare. So somebody falls off the bed. How do you get onto a 911 call? How do you get the ambulance to come in? How do you ensure that he is taken care of well in time and we are protecting lives? That could be a great example. Similarly, we are probably looking at the same within telecom when we are looking at signal strength and how do you take away the signals and replace that with Wi-Fi. And somewhere where Wi-Fi goes away, how do you replace that onto the regular cellular signals, and how are we collaborating on that? So this is a real life experience that we are going through, and this will probably run through the next few years, where every home across the globe, when it is smart and it is controlled from a centralized place, experiences are built in based on individual user requirements, and we then have a transparent B2B and B2C kind of conversation. And the GCC is pushing hard to make these innovations work, will be the life going forward. So this is a real life example where it's a telecom stuff coupled with a healthcare outcome as well.
Great, those are some truly impressive examples, Srikara, and thank you for sharing them. And it's really great to see how technology is driving measurable impact across such diverse sectors. And what really stands out is how innovation isn't just improving efficiency, but also transforming the end user experience. Once again, thank you for sharing those insights.
I want to just bring out one more element, which I think I was keen on. I just
Sure.
wanted to take a pause. So this was more in the pharmacy sector.
Mhm.
And in the pharmacy sector, you see today recipes of all the medicines that we take. And these are thousands of medicines that we have, right? And extremely difficult to say which medicine is going to affect which part of the body. And if you take a second one, how is it going to affect together something else? It's a very, very different world, I would call that. So today we have been collaborating with AI companies and with AI modules that are there open source as well as off the shelf. In terms of, say, go to a pharma industry and somebody says, I want to know how to actually make paracetamol. I'm just taking an example of paracetamol, which is the most simple thing. But training becomes an issue of how to do from engineer to engineer to engineer, processes to processes to processes, and then you want to augment on top of paracetamol a cold medicine as well. How do you do that? So we are leveraging AI in terms of just giving that information to say, this is what I want to do. AI goes all around the place, looks at the right components, looks at the right number of grams to be put in, integrates that whole model, and gives you the end model of the medicine that you have to prepare and the ingredients that go into that, and to also say where do you get those ingredients from with the current availability in the market and all the supply chain constraints, and then tells you when it is going to be available. So all these things would take quite a lot of time in the past, but with our system GCC and the ability to innovate with these kind of thought products, we are able to come out and say, okay, your paracetamol with cold medicine integrated on top of it has these ingredients. This is a supply chain, this is a bill of material, and this is the places where you're going to get this from. And thereby your outcome should be ready in 3 months' time based on the volumes you are requesting. This whole pipelines that we are creating is again an outcome of a innovation center, which is like a GCC innovation center.
Definitely, and I think that really makes a lot of sense considering the timeline we are in and how we are progressing forward in an era where GCCs are, becoming more of strategic partners for global enterprises. Moving ahead, my next question is somewhere around sustainability. In 2021, a mere 17% of GCCs were actively involved in supporting global sustainability and integrated reporting. However, I guess in 2024, this figure has surged to 47%, signifying a substantial increase in the number of GCCs supporting sustainability initiatives that involves environmental data analysis, sustainable supply chain management, and even corporate social responsibility. How do you think we can drive sustainable chip design, responsible AI, and center of excellence led innovation?
Good question, and a very complicated one as well, I should
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
because sustainability drives in different directions and it's the point of view from where you're standing. So, for example, let's take power. Power is a big, big, big requirement in today's world. So, there are tons and tons of data centers coming up. There's tons and tons of power requirements coming up. Today, if you ask for power required today, you're probably going to get it in 7 years' time, which earlier was just in 2 years' time. So this is a place where people could actually be using energy which is not sustainable. And thereby you need to be clear to say, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a gas powered power, which is good to have? I think that's probably one of the quickest ones, which is sustainable as well as early available. Nuclear could be great, but you won't get nuclear in like 2 years' time. It probably takes 10 years to get nuclear. But if somebody is shifting into coal, somebody is shifting into burning some things which are not good and it becomes sustainable, that's not sustainable power. So we should probably start as innovation leaders, GCC leaders, technology leaders, enable these data center providers and others to use sustainable energy. So I would say that's probably a good point of view to start with. The second one naturally is you said everything to do with chip enablement and chip design and things like that. I think again this is where my passport theory comes to life up here. So when we were looking at batteries and we were looking at say the passport for a battery, our whole intent was to ensure that whatever comes out is coming from sustainable means. And this is where the location from where it comes, the way it is produced, the way labor is used, all that is brought into picture, and thereby we are ensuring that whatever end product comes out is something that we are all happy to be dealing with. That's where even the chip design and the way the chip wafers are being used, the electronics for that, the rare earth magnets are used, all this comes into picture. CSR activity, I presume, has increased considerably. Our systems is doing a lot of CSR activity by itself. We actually have good partnerships with schools and with villages and how we go ahead doing CSR programs. I think I should say that I'm pretty happy by the way the organization is dealing with sustainability here. So in my view, every engineer has to be taught like how you see basics of cybersecurity. The basics of sustainability has to be something that has to be trained for all the people. They have to be told this is what it means when you are looking at doing something or taking your own actions, how sustainability becomes a part and parcel of it. We encourage a lot of people to still work remotely with little bit of hybridness because I think it's going to help having people 2 3 days in the office, but not all 5 days. We have gone completely into an LED based kind of lighting systems. We are actually at this point as we speak even thinking of getting into housing sector. This is on the business side where we are talking to some people and say, do you really need all the wires that you used to have? Because 60% of your home wired is through copper. You need so much copper considering everything has become LED lights and things like that, low power kind of devices, except your refrigerator, washing machine, things like that. Is there a need that we could centralize it and change the whole wiring? I think our systems is at the point where they're taking sustainability very seriously and looking at all these aspects, educating all its people, and then going to business and talking about sustainability and how some changes can actually make it much better. So this, in short, I think is the approach that our systems is taking towards sustainability.
Absolutely. And of course, when we talk about these aspects, I think sustainability, responsible AI, and innovation can come together to shape the next era of technology. And it's really important that while organizations are focusing on improving the performance and efficiency, they also need to consider and put a lot of efforts around ethics, accountability, and even long term environmental impact. Said that, Srikara, one last question for you. What do you think, or what are your views on the future of tech and GCCs?
Well, I think it's extremely bright, and you make me smile when you ask that question because I think there's a lot that is happening as we speak, and each one of the pointers that you brought in about how AI is going to be used, how data is going to be utilized, how we can translate that into making lives of people much better, predictability being something that we should not even be thinking about, how it can help people with different enabled needs, have how old people can be treated, how hospitals can innovate, how we can serve more for less kind of thing. I think there's a lot to do, Priya, and thereby the next 5 years, it's just going to be innovation riding the wave, and every day will be new. So some people might complain saying that the changes are too fast, we are not able to cope up with the changes, but I think we just need to live with it, try to be accepting what comes out, and then be very positive about all these changes are going to result in a better human life. And that's where I think this is. There are some thoughts that I have on terms of, say, for example, what are the core things to look at from the big companies. I would say data is become the new king. There's no other gold than data. So focus on data. Look at how do you clean up your data, how do you govern your data, how do you do pilot projects a lot more, how do you build things to scale. And if you start thinking on those aspects and then bring in AI on top of your data, I think that's a good direction to be thinking about.
Definitely. And I think to maintain global competitiveness, GCCs will continue to expand their services and improve operational efficiency through digital skills and technologies, empowering the transition of GCCs from capability centers to value creators. Thank you so much, Srikara, for taking out the time and effort to be on a podcast today and helping us understand that GCCs are truly instrumental in strengthening competitive advantage by supporting digital transformation and enhancing organizational agility. These centers will be definitely at the forefront, empowering the adoption of cutting edge technologies and evolving into the hubs of innovation. And GCC 3.0 is not a future scenario. We are already in the middle of it. It's just how soon the organizations can adapt to it. Thank you so much for your insights, Srikara. It was lovely chatting with you.
It's been my pleasure, Priya, and you summarized everything so nicely. I am really amazed at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Srikara. This is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's episode around GCCs and its impact in the future. You can view all our previous podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Meanwhile, stay tuned as we will be back again with one more exciting episode around how technology is reshaping the business landscape. Thank you so much.